Statistical facts of the history of polygraph. First person is Galvani. He the one developed the GSR, or the galvanic skin reflex, or the galvanometer, which records electrical bodily resistance. This GSR reflected emotional changes by measuring changes in person's skin resistance of electricity. Okay? Ito yung nagre-response o pagpapawis ng skin. Yan yung nire-record nito. Next is sticker. The one invented is Galvani. The one who suggests to use it in detecting deception is sticker. Okay? Next, Veragut is the psychogalvanic reflex. First to use this term, he believed that the electrical phenomenon is due to the activity of sweat glands. This is the electrodermal response now. Now, Angelo Mosso, the Plasismograph. Okay? He made the Plasismograph. This one measures the changes in the heartbeat and respiration. Going back to him. Ay, wala pa. Dito. Kala ko nalaktawan ko. Now, Plasismograph. This one, Cesar Lombroso naman tayo. Kung si Angelo Mosso has his Plasismograph, which record heartbeat and respiration, Cesar Lombroso has its Hydrospigmograph. Okay, for detecting deception. This one uses water. Not water. This one, this hydrospigmograph detects, are intended to detect deception now. Okay, through the use of blood pressure. That is hydrospigmograph. He invented this one, Cesar Lombroso. Okay, while Angelo Mosso is the Plasismograph, which is the heartbeat and respiration. Next, go back here. Blood pressure ang hydrospigmograph. Now, we have Vittorio Benussi. Okay, conducted experiment using the Pneumograph for detecting deception, or the detection of deception. Noted that this inspiration-expiration ratio change during deception. Okay, he considered the respiration changes as symptoms of detecting this, or symptoms of deception. Pag hinga daw ng malalim, pag bugtong hininga, or pag yung breathing natin is one of the sign of deception. Okay? Kung lalo na kung nagsisinungaling tayo or tinatanong tayo, nagiging conscious yung katawan natin, sisinungaling daw tayo. Yan. Now, who is known as the father of old, right? Polygraphy. Old polygraphy. This is William Moulton Marston, or the WMM. William Moulton Marston, or William Marston. Pwede na. Why? He is the father of old polygraphy. Meron bang new? Okay? Or modern? May ganun ba? Malaman nyo mamaya. First, he invented the first lie detector. Okay? He used two. He used the sphygmomanometer and the galvanometer. Sphygmomanometer is attached to the blood pressure. He record the respiration noted through the time when the subject responds verbally. And he used galvanometer to record the skin resistance changes, and a gripping device to record tension. This sphygmomanometer, ayaw lumabas is the one records the systolic and diastolic. Okay, systolic is the high point, and the diastolic is the low point. That's the biggest investment. Biggest contribution of William Moulton Marston. Systolic and diastolic. Okay, systolic high point, diastolic low point. Now, go here. Two electrodes are affixed to two finger on the same hand. Yan. Later on, malalaman nyo kung paano ilagay yan. John A. Larson constructed the instrument capable of continuously recording all the phenomena, such as, ito na, blood pressure. We have blood pressure now. We have pulse and respiration na. Okay, in the year 1921. He also was the first to use more than one recording to detect deception. John A. Larson. Larson polygraph machine. It records blood pressure, it records pulse rate or pulse beat, and it records respiration. Walang GSR. Okay? Who is known as the father of modern polygraphy? This Leonard the Killer. Okay? This killer polygraphy is in the year 1926. Okay? The polygraph included in additional to unit for recording. Isa lang, dinagdagan. Ito. Kay John A. Larson, anong kulang dyan? Yung GSR. Yun yung dinagdag kay Leonard the Killer. Now, blood pressure, pulse beat, pulse rate, respiration, galvanic skin reflex, or the electrodermal response known as the GSR, dinagdag. gained the first-hand experience in the polygraph interrogation now. Kaya siya ang father of modern polygraphy. Now, doctor, sana kung na-invento ni John A. Larson, dinagdag pa yun, siya sana. Kaso, in the year 1921 to, di ba? In the year 1926, here comes Leonardo Killer, dinagdag niya yun, GSR, and then siya na. Alright, Dr. Joseph Kubis, first to use computer application for the purpose of polygraph chart analysis. What is the computer age of polygraphy? This is 1992 na. Okay? Kung na-invento to, 1926, and then here comes 1992, tagal, no? Here comes the computer age of polygraphy. Now, what country is the currently the leader in forensic psychophysiology because they are using the computer polygraph? Walang iba kundi in USA, diba? United States of America. When was polygraph first introduced to the Philippines by the crime laboratory of the military police? This was 1945. Okay? And the crime laboratory sent several people including ito yung mga sikat, Mr. Jose Navarro, pero marami silang sinend, okay? And Conrado Dumlao to the US for polygraph training. Sino pa? Ito pa. We have Mr. Agustin Patricio. Is the first person being sent by the NBI to train at the Killer Polygraph Institute. Mr. Agustin Patricio. Now, polygraphy, let's define it. It is a technique used to determine stress level of a person being questioned regarding a specific issue to ascertain whether he or she is deceptive, nagsisinungaling, or telling the truth, or nagsasabi ng totoo, using a machine called polygraph. What is a polygraph? It came from Greek word, poly and graphen. Poly means many, marami, graphen means writing, maraming sinusulat. Yan. It is a specific diagnostic instrument that is used by a polygraph examiner from the polygraph examiner, to administer a polygraph examination for the purpose of verifying the truthfulness of a person's statement. Right, next, does polygraph really detect lying? Interpret natin. Polygraph is merely a device that does not detect deception, but only records physiological changes in the body, which is the sign of lying daw. Now, in short, no, it does not detect the truth. Okay? It is just a mere record your physiological changes based on the question asked to you. And the accuracy of it is 90 to 95%. Okay? Depende kung well-calibrated ang ating polygraph machine and competent ba ang ating polygraph examiner. We will base on those things. 90 to 95%. Who is the person to be examined on polygraph? Usually suspect of criminal. We call him subject, or we call him examinee. Next, who are the person who asks for the service of examiner to help verify the truthfulness of the subject statement or testimony? Is usually the investigator of the criminal cases or the requesting party. Yan, yung nag-iimbestiga. Sila yon, requesting party. It is a well-phrased question that is designed to cause a response from a subject. Okay? Tawag natin dito yung may tanong daw, at yung tanong na mapapalabas na pag tinanong na natin tong tanong na to, it is intended for the subject to have a specific response. Yan. It's a well-phrased question that is designed to cause a response from a subject. Okay? It is a question. Pag tinanong natin yon, we assume that there is a response from the subject. Okay? It could be in form of relevant question, irrelevant question, and kung ano-ano pang question. We have specific stimulus. Yun yung tawag doon, specific stimulus. Now, yung question. Okay, paano naman is any deviation or change from the subject normal tracing as shown by the polygraph? Nagtanong tayo, specific stimulus. Ngayon, ito yung response. Ang tawag natin sa magiging sagot niya is specific response. Okay? Next, we have it is the tracing of the subject when no question is asked or the response of a subject to an irrelevant question. This is a normal response. Okay? There is a normal response. Pag tinatanong ka, pag hindi ka tinatanong, gumagalaw pa rin yun. Okay? That is normal response. Okay? Pag tinanong ka pa rin, saktong galaw pa rin yun, still normal response. Pagka gumalaw yun ng kakaiba, ang tawag natin doon is specific response. Okay, nagbago. There's a deviation from normal response. Next, it is a continuous paper with graph where detected physiological response of the subject are recorded. That is Polygraph Chart. Okay, Polygraph Chart. Dire-diretso lang yan. Na nagsusulat sa polygraph machine and then dire-diretso lang yung pag-record nun. Now, we have Polygraph Chart. It is the Polygraph Chart tracing obtained from a subject. Consists of the Polygraph Chart and tracing of the subject from a specific stimulus. This is polygram. Yung end process, polygram. Yung chart na lang, kukunin natin yun. Polygram tawag doon. Now, this is a soundproof room where the subject is being questioned. We call this polygraph room, known as well as interrogation room. 90% soundproof, okay? How accurate? Sinabi ko na sa inyo, 90 to 95%. Anong basis? When properly administered by a professional trained and competent polygraph examiner, diba? Using the federal standard and procedure and instrumentation, the result will be in the range of 90 to 95% accuracy, not 100, not 96, but only 90 to 95. Now, factors in the success of the polygraph examination, we have cooperation, rapport between the requesting party, the polygraph examiner, and their superiors. Now, we have as well as training of the polygraph examiner. Siyempre, competent dapat. Experience of the polygraph examiner. Hindi lang pwedeng training. Kailangan mayroong experience, diba? Quality nung gamit. Yan, structure of the model of the machine. Latest, outdated ba? Now, we have as well design, structure of the polygraph room. As well as, we will consider that one. Kailangan soundproof siya. Yung polygraph room or the interrogation room na gagamitin natin is mag-follow sa standards. Kasi kung maraming design yan, magkakaroon tayo ng problema niyan. Bakit? Kasi, di ba nga, dapat walang distraction ang subject natin. Now, how polygraph work? Okay? The examiner will fasten various painless component to around the body of the subject. Masakit po ba mag-undergo ng polygraph examination? No. Okay? The examiner will fasten. Kakabit sa'yo yung various, yung iba't ibang klaseng painless, walang sakit. Okay? Kahit anong pakabit sa'yo dyan, hindi ka masasaktan. Components ng polygraph machine. Okay? Around the body of the subject. Number 2, these components are equipped with sensors. Okay? Sensors that serve to collect, measure, and record onto the polygraph chart. Okay? The examinees or the subject physiological data obtained from the three major system of the body, which is the cardiovascular system, we have your respiratory system, we have your electrodermal response. Ano yung cardiovascular? This is your blood pressure and pulse rate. Respiratory, this is your breathing. Your electrodermal response is your GSR, the galvanic skin reflex. O yun. Right? That is that cardiovascular. Okay, that is your pulse rate and blood pressure, cardiovascular. Next, will you feel pain during the polygraph examination? It is a big no. Sabi ko nga sa inyo, painless components to the R2 will be attached to your body. Wala kang mararamdamang sakit, di ba? Now, can you force a person to undergo polygraph examination? Again, no. The person can exercise his right to refuse. Yes. Kaya nga, pag nakikita nyo yung tulpo, di ba, sir? Pwede po ba kayong magpa-polygraph? Do you agree to undergo polygraph para linisin yung pangalan nyo? Mga ganun yung salita ni tulpo, di ba? Siyempre, ito naman, police. Oo, kasi gusto naman malinis yung pangalan niya. Hindi na nag-isip ng tama that he has the right to refuse, di ba? Forcing a person to undergo polygraph examination will alter his normal response, di ba? Kasi hindi siya makapag-isip ng tama. So, at the end result will be not that good. Kasi na-alter yung normal response niya, kinabahan or anything factor, natakot, yan. Now, how long does a polygraph examination last? It lasts For the total, lahat na. From the start up to end, yan. From phase 1 to phase 4, a polygraph examination lasts for 2 hours. Okay, 2 hours. So, in the Philippines, is polygraph admissible as evidence? A big no, di ba? No, polygraph examination is not acceptable as evidence here in the Philippines trial or the Philippine trial court because it is only 90 to 95%. Okay? Reason why PVE or is not admissible. Ano ba yung PVE natin? Yung polygraph result. Yan, PVE is not admissible in the Philippines. Yes, qualification of the polygraph examiners are not standardized. Okay, wala pa. The PVE using the polygraph is not standardized as well. Yung result daw. Okay, no standard instrument as well. Qualification of the polygraph examiner. Ito kayo. Criminologist or BS Criminology graduate. Psychology graduate as well. Pass the civil service professional exam. Okay? Polygraph training of at least 6 months at the PNP Crime Laboratory. You can either go 6 months of continuous actual polygraph examination under the supervision of the qualified polygraph examiner of the PNP Crime Lab. Now, limitation of a polygraph machine. Invaluable investigative aid but never substitute for an investigation. Okay? Para lang ma-fasten yung pag-iimbestiga. Not a lie detector. Hindi siya nagde-detect ng deception. It is just only a scientific diagnostic instrument. Okay? Ang record lang nito, the bodily response. Doesn't record, it doesn't tell you kung ang tao ay deceptive. Now, not capable of determining facts. Yan, parang number 2 lang. It is only record response of the subject. So, kaya hindi nyo pwedeng i-force kasi baka ma-alter yung kanyang mga response. Kaya dapat willing lang yung subject natin. And he go normal condition while doing the examination. Okay, not 100% accurate nor 100 reliable. Its accuracy depends on the examiner's competency. Hindi lang examiner, syempre. Based on the subject status nung kanyang health as well as yung status din ng kanyang psychological aspect as well as yung instrument. Yan. So, errors in polygraph examination. False positive and then false negative. False positive occurs when the truthful subject is reported as being deceptive. Nagkamali. False negative naman occurs when a deceptive subject is reported as being truthful. Baliktad. Yung nagsisinungaling nasabing hindi nagsisinungaling. Yung hindi nagsisinungaling naman nasabing nagsisinungaling. False positive and false negative. False positive yung totoo naman siya na hindi siya nagsisinungaling pero at the end of the examination sinabi nagsisinungaling siya. That is false positive. False negative naman is yung deceptive talaga. Deceptive talaga, yan, nagsinungaling talaga pero at the end of the result truthful siya. Ibig sabihin hindi daw siya nagsinungaling. That is false negative. We have a theory of polygraph examination. When a mentally normal person tells a lie, okay, psychological changes occurs within his body that could be recorded by the instrument and evaluated by the examiner. That is a mere theory class. Okay, pero ngayon kasi kaya nyo nang kontrolin yung sarili nyo, di ba? Or hindi lahat siguro, pero may mga tao na kayang kontrolin their emotions. We have already talked about types of liar, di ba? So, what if you can counter pathological liar? Yan, diba? Next. This one is the component or the polygraph components and accessories. Let's talk about this one. Pneumograph. Okay, a rubberized corrugated tube fastened around the subject chest and abdomen. Okay? It is a design to detect and transmit breathing patterns. Okay? 1-inch expansion is the recommended maximum breathing pattern. Okay, how long is the pneumograph tube? That is 10 inches. Now, ito. Pneumograph attachment. Pakita ko sa inyo. 1 tube for the upper chest, 1 tube above the stomach. Ganito yan. Mamaya may picture ako niyan. Why are there 2 attached of pneumograph? Bakit dalawa? There are person who is chest breathing and stomach breathing. Generally, men are stomach breathing. and women are chest breathing naman. If only one pneumo channel is used, it should be placed in the location of the greatest respiration movement. Ito, yan. The pneumograph tube. Ito, babae ito ha, babae. Yan. Ito, dalawa. Yan, dalawa tayo. Okay? Pag babae class, upper boobs, yan, upper part, okay? And then, sa stomach. While, this one, ayan, upper pa rin. Yan, upper. Isa lang naman to, isa. Yan. Cardiograph. Cardiograph is, it is placed around the bicep. Yan, bicep, parang bini-BP. Okay? Used to measure the cardiovascular activity, the blood pressure, or the blood pressure cuff of containing a rubber bladder. Okay, rubber bladder. Okay? A bladder that is wrapped around one of the subject arm in such a way as to ensure that the rubber portion of the cup is placed over the brachial artery of the right arm for more satisfactory recording. Or right arm tayo. Okay, right arm. Now, cardiograph. Yan. This is the bottom pen of the instrument. The polygraphist inflates the bladder with a hand pump. Okay? To put air into the system, which records in a sphygmomanometer. So record in a sphygmomanometer in millimeter of mercury. For male, it is 60 millimeter, tandaan, and for female, it is 70 millimeter. Now, we have systole and diastole. Heartbeats, heart relax. Systolic, ito yun, William Moulton Marston class. Okay? The systole or the systolic is the heartbeat. This is the high point. Okay? Ting, yung ganun. And then where it will relax, bababa na. Okay? That is the diastole or the diastolic. Ito na yung bumababa na. Bababa na. Okay? Next. Aquatic Notch. This is usually located halfway down the diastolic and limb of the polygraph cardio tracing. Yan. Ito yung arm cuff. Okay? Ganyan. Now, we have your galvanograph. Galvanograph, a set of electrodes attached to the index finger and to the ring finger of the left hand, used for obtaining the recording of the GSR or electrodermal response coming from the sweat of the subject. This is the longest and the middle pen of the instrument. Okay? This is a 1.5 inch longer. Why does the electrodes should be placed on an alternative finger such as the index and ring? Bakit nga ba? To prevent the metal plate from touching each other. Yan. Causing an erratic recording. How long is the electrode of the GSR? That is 7 inches. Ganyan yan. The finger electrodes, yan, ganyan. Meron silang division, merong isa lang. Okay? Yan, ganyan. Blood pressure cuff, nasa right. Nasa left naman, ang pneumograph. Nasa left naman, ang galvanometers. Nasa gitna, ang pneumograph. Okay, ganyan tayo. Okay? Right, blood pressure. Tama ba? Kaya ba dito? Tama, left. Okay, ayan. Galvanograph, index finger and to the ring finger of the left hand. Kasi right hand natin, yan, right hand natin yung cardiograph, blood pressure, right arm pala. Then left finger natin, ring and index, yung galvanometers. The chemograph. Itong chemograph class, it has a synchronized motor that drives the chart at the rate of 6 inches per minute. Okay, every 5 seconds, which the chemograph division is 1.5 or 1/2 inches. So in 60 seconds, the chemograph can run for 12 divisions. Now, we go to polygraph room. Yan. Polygraph room must be private. Okay? Sino ba ang allowed na nasa inside or sino ang allowed during polygraph examination. Okay? Or the instrumentation. Dalawa lang. Polygraph examiner and the examinee or the subject. Silang dalawa lang. Wala nang ibang tao. Okay? And then, pwede kayo dun sa two-way mirror mag-observe sa labas. Okay? Private. Quiet and soundproof for at least 90% or for at least 90%. Okay? Adequately lighted. Well ventilated as well. Devoid of pictures, painting, decors, or other ornaments. Should be quiet. Should be equipped. And syempre, hindi pwedeng maingay din. With concealed microphone or video camera. Yan. There should be an observation wall with a one-way mirror. One-way mirror pala. Okay, not two-way mirror. One-way mirror. Now, should be done by the subject before undergoing the exam. Ito. Yan. Kailangan have a good sleep. 5 hours as a minimum. Good sleep. Yan, para masabi natin good sleep. Refrain from smoking prior to the test. 2 hours before the test. So, nyari, nag-yosi pa siya ng alas 8. Mga 8 plus 2 hours, 8, 9, 10. Mga 10. Yan. Okay, pwede. Refrain from smoking prior to the test. That is 2 hours. 2 hours. Okay? Hindi na siya dapat nag-smoke. Okay? Smoke siya na 7. 2 hours. 8. 7 to 8, 8 to 9 pala. Yan, 2 hours. 7, 8, 9. 2 hours. Now, prolonged interrogation prior to the test. No prolonged interrogation prior to the test pala. Have not been subjected to physical abuse or body contact. So, refrain from administering drugs which will affect the body system. Not suffering from temporary illness. Okay? Not to be hungry. Now, the following person should not submit to a polygraph examination if a person who is being forced to do, a person who suffers from a serious heart condition, unless he or she has obtained prior written permission from a physician to do so. A pregnant woman, unless she has obtained prior written permission as well from a physician. A person judged to be mentally incompetent, and a person who suffers from a severe nervous condition. Yan, kasi hindi po pwede. Okay? Bakit? There is the response that they will give was inaccurate. A person who suffer from severe respiratory illness. Yan. Quadriplegic. A person who has a bad cold. A person who is in extreme pain at the time of the polygraph examination. Example, you have migraine, toothache, recent injury, and etc. A person who feels extremely pagod. Now, ito. Bakit 2 hours? Bakit 2 hours? Why 2 hours? Phases of polygraph examination. Phases. We have pre-test or the pre-test phase. We have the in-test. We have the in-test instrumentation phase, and we have post-test phase. Okay? We have the post-test phase. Now, pre-test interview. Let's go to the phases of polygraph examination. We have your pre-test, we have your in-test, we have your post-test. Okay? So, pre-test tayo. Ito, pinakamatagal. Yung in-test, mabilis lang yan. Hindi. We have the post-test. Mabilis lang din yan. Pre-test interview. The examiner discuss with the subject the test issue. Okay? The examiner discusses with the subject the test issue. I-discuss sa kanya kung ano yung mga gagawin. That is pre-test. Okay? Review the test questions that will be asked during the test and assess the subject emotional and physiological suitability. Kung okay ba yung subject na mag-undergo, kung sinunod ba yung lahat ng 5 hours good sleep, and no drinking or of alcohol or no yosi prior to the examination, and checking of all necessary documents. And we'll discuss as well all the necessary discussion or necessary things that the examinee should know. Okay? The primary purpose of the pretest is the pretest interview is to prepare the subject for the test. Ayan. To prepare him. Okay? Is to prepare the subject for the test. And as well as to develop good rapport. No, rapport. Kasi good establishment of the subject and the examiner. Na safe ka sa akin. Parang ganun. And na place him to cooperative point of view. Okay? This phase includes as well as the subject must be appraised of his constitutional rights. Sabihin yung rights niya. Okay? Next, obtain subject consent to undergo the test as well. This going to have a signing of the statement. Yan. The taking of personal data of the subject, syempre. Determine his or her suitability of the test. Clinically observation of the subject. Evaluate yun. Evaluating the psychological preparation of the subject. And tulog ba? Next is informing the subject of his involvement with the case. Now, how long is the pretest interview? Yan, it has 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, sa maximum length is 30. Maximum length is 2 hours of the whole test. But this one, the pretest interview took 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, 20 to 30 minutes. Yan ang pinakamahaba, pretest. Now, instrumentation. This involves the attachment of the polygraph components to the subject. After pretest, ito na, instrumentation na tayo, such as the Pneumograph, Cardiograph, and the GSR. Ilalagay na. Right arm is the what component? That's Cardiograph. Left index and ring, that is the GSR. And then on the chest is the Pneumograph tubes. Now, stage where subject physiological response are recorded as the subject answered a set of questions reviewed earlier. Yan, yun. Kung ano rin yun, papakita sa kanya. Procedure under the instrumentation stage. Switch the power on and power off the polygraph instrument. Okay? Attach the sensor. Switch the power on. The power. Ano to? Parang mali. Switch the power on. The power off the polygraph instrument. I-switch on daw. Ayan, i-switch on. Okay? Attach the sensor to the subject with this sequence. Una, ang nilalagay nyo, GSR plate. Lalagay nyo muna yung sa galvanized skin reflex on the left index and left ring. Next, we have your pneumotube 1 and pneumotube 2. Pneumotube 1 yung upper. Tube 2 lower. And then, your arm cuff. Ganyan yung pagkakasunod-sunod ha. First, kahit yung GSR muna. Kahit ano mauna, index or ring or index. Next, pneumograph tube 1, upper, torso, okay? Upper chest. Next, pneumograph tube 2, yung sa baba, sa stomach. And then, arm cuff. Now, requesting party to remove thick clothing and jewelry, okay? Tatanggalin yan, which will interfere with the sensor. Open the vent by manipulating the vent knob. Conduct final inspection to the instrument, switch on the chart drive, and then adjust the sensitivity of the pens. Adjust the sensitivity of the pens if it is centered. Position the question for easy reading and preparing for the marker. Now, remind the subject of the instrument. Remind the subject of the instructions he must follow. Okay. First, tell the subject that the test is about to begin. Okay, while putting an X mark below the cardio tracing. Diba yung mga chart marking natin is the start is X. Okay? The start is X. So, you will tell to the subject that the test is about to begin and then we will now put X mark. Ibig sabihin nun para sa atin na masabi na mag-start na tayo on that point. Okay? And then, proceed in the reading the prepared test questions. Now, observe the procedure in the chart marking or chart probing. Bakit? Kasi pagka mayroong specific stimuli, i-record mo based on the question, i-record mo siya based on the specific response sa question. Okay? At yung pag-mark mo is based on your chart marking. Okay? Like X naman pagtapos. Diba? Yan. Now, after making the necessary markings on the last question, tell the subject that the test has just ended while marking XX below the cardio tracing. Yan, that's the mark XX. Start, X, and XX. And then, switch off the chart drive. Lift the pen. Taas mo yung pen to ready positions. Set the pen sensitivity to minimum. Detach the sensor from the subject in this sequence. Pabaliktad naman. Anong last nating kinabit is arm cuff. Yan naman ang una nating tatanggalin. Tanggalin natin pneumotube number 2 nasa stomach, and then yung nasa breast nasa tama, upper torso, o yung breast parehas lang din, and then the GSR. Now let's go to the post test, last part. After the examination, inquire if he has any questions. Okay, examiners review test data, obtain and interprets the polygraph chart. Based on the initial evaluation of the polygraph, apply post-test interview or post-test interrogation. Post-test interview, pagka ang result is the person is not lying. Post-test interrogation if the subject is lying. That is the difference between the two, depending on the result of the examination. Okay? Okay, NDI. So, no deception indicated. The examinee is telling the truth. That is the interpretation. DI. Okay? Deception indicated the examinee is not telling the truth. DI. Okay, ibig sabihin nagsisinungaling siya. While INC is inconclusive, the evaluation of the psychological data is inconclusive. Okay, mali. That is INC or the incomplete. Parang incomplete, ganun. Pero inconclusive yung tawag natin doon. Okay? And DI, no deception indicated. DI, deception indicated. Okay, that is the interprets. Now, post-test interview and post-test interrogation. Post-test interview done if the test charge of the polygraph indicates that a subject is telling the truth. Sabi ko kasi yun, sasabi siya ng totoo that he will be released cordially and the examiner will thank him or him for his cooperation. And while post-test interrogation naman, if the subject or if the polygraph test result indicates deception. Okay? Pagka ano tayo, DI. Okay, then the examiner proceeds to the conduct of a short interrogation, the purpose of which is to obtain confession or admission. That is the purpose of that. Formulation of questions. Now, general rule. It must be as short as possible. It must be answerable by yes or no lang. Okay? Hindi mo papastate yung buong pangalan niya, but you will state his name and then he will confirm it if that is his or her real name. Yan. Yes or no lang sagot niya. Must be clear and unmistakable. Must avoid using legalistic term. Dapat naiintindihan niya lang. Ito pala, question. Sir, English yung pagtanong. Hindi nakakaintindi ng English yung subject. Kailangan kung ano yung naiintindihan niyang language or dialect, yun yung gagamitin. Okay? You cannot ask him English if the subject doesn't know how to speak English or hindi siya nakakaintindi. Kailangan it is known to the subject. Okay? Yung ginagamit mong dialect or language. Or Tagalog man, kailangan alam niya kung ano yung question. Okay? Kaya nga meron tayong pre-test, di ba? Para for you to be able to clarify everything. Okay? Now, must be praised on the language or dialect known by the subject. O, yun. Must refer to a single offense. Must not contain inferences to one religion or belief or race. Pwede. How many questions must be formulated in a single session of examination? Okay, 10 questions is the maximum. 10 questions talaga. Yan, 10 questions. Now, time interval of questions. We have 10 seconds following an irrelevant question and 15 to 20 seconds following a relevant questions. Irrelevant. What is your name is William? Yes, irrelevant, di ba? Are you in Makati City, especially in the part during this commission of the crime? During the murder of Miss Ganito? Oh, that is irrelevant. Ganon. Bagakaiba. Okay? Now, different type of questions. Go irrelevant question. These questions are formulated without any specific relation with the case under investigation. Okay, di ba? You can confirm lang. Do you live in Isabela? Oh yes. Oh, di ba? Parang irrelevant. And then, is your favorite color white? Parang ganun. Your name, William? Yes. Diba? Irrelevant. Doesn't have any under investigation. Diba? While they are assigned to establish subject psychological norm. Yan, kino-condition mo lang. And to reduce the excitement level created by relevant question. Now, you ask, have you ever committed crime before that is now becoming irrelevant? Diba? Yan. Now, relevant. These are primary or key questions asked by the examiner in order to resolve a specific subject matters. Okay, do you know, Miss... Do you know the victim? Yun na, medyo relevant na, diba? We have two types of relevant. Kaya ako sinabing medyo relevant kasi we have two types. Yan, weak relevant and the strong relevant. Having an extreme and specific relationship to the crime or matter under investigation. Two types or two classification. The strong relevant or primary or crucial question is produce emotional response to the guilty subject. While the weak relevant or the secondary question often deal with guilty knowledge and partial involvement. Oh, do you know Miss ganito? No, di ba? Weak relevant. Yung victim. Strong relevant naman is have you have you killed some have you do you paano ko ba sabihin to? Parang nakita mo na ba yung dagger ba yung pinangsaksak kay Miss ganito? Parang ganun. That is strong relevant. Okay? Strong relevant. Now we have control questions. The probable lie. This is a question designed to produce a response in the innocent subject and serves as a basis for evaluating the subject perceptual set. Okay, it must concern about events that transpired within 3 or 5 years period before the case under investigation or the present occurred. Okay, parang have you ever committed crime formerly? Oh, yung mga ganun, control question. Now, before reaching the age of 20, ito sample pala. You have ever stolen anything? O yun, parang ganun. Not connected with the theft from your office. Did you ever steal anything? O, diba? Did you ever steal anything anywhere? That is control question. Now, symptomatic question. It determines if there's something else the subject is afraid. Okay? The examiner will ask him, or FP, examiner, ask him, her, even if the promise to ask question about outside issues. Okay? Now, are you now convinced that I will not ask you any questions aside from those which we have reviewed? Oh, yes or no? Are you afraid that I will ask you about something else which I told you I would not? Yan. That is symptomatic question. Now, it is the process of using symbols on the polygraph chart to denote the subject reaction and other circumstances that occurs during the actual polygraph test. Chart marking. Okay? Paano yung chart marking? You will tell to the subject that we will gonna start the polygraph examination or the instrumentation. We are on the phases part 2, instrumentation. Okay? You will mark it XX. That is chart marking na. Polygram. Okay? Refers to the composite record of the Pneumograph, Cardiograph, and the Galvanograph tracing from the moment the actual test begins until it ends. It contains the tracing, stimulus marks, and symbols skillfully written by the polygraph examiner, okay, or the FP, while asking questions to the subject. Chart interpretation after then, pagkatapos ng ating in-test, okay, and the instrumentation, phase 2, the process of reading and deciphering the meaning of the graphical response of the subject based on the chart tracing. Okay, the general rule in chart interpretation, there must be specific response. To be specific, it must be a deviation from the normal response. Yan. The specific response must appear in at least 2 test chart. Dalawa. Okay, dalawa. The best indication of deception is the simultaneously specific in the 3 tracing of the chart. Yan, parang ganyan. Okay, the tracing taken by a computer polygram. Look on this one, normal deviation, di ba? And then, respiratory rate, yung nasa taas. Electrodermal, or parang GSR, yun, nasa taas. Nasa gitna, that's green. Respiratory rate, yung blue. And then, we have your blood pressure and heart rate, that is color red. Tignan nyo, normal naman, normal, di ba? Parehas yung pagsayaw nila, yan. Now, siguro nagtanong si examiner and then kinabahan bigla si subject. Merong specific response dyan. Tumaas bigla. Yung nagpawis siya bigla. So, tumaas bigla yung kanyang, nagpawis siya. So, tumaas yung chart marking. Okay? So, may record natin yun on the chart marking. Okay? The chart marking. Tumaas yung pen. Yan, tumaas yung pen. Kaya, kasi nirecord ng GSR. Kaya yun ang i-record natin sa chart marking. That one. And then, bumaba uli. Nag-calm. So, the legal rule in chart interpretation is that there must be specific response and the specific response must be appear consistently. The same in the relevant question in 2 or more chart. Is polygraph result conclusive? No. Okay? Hindi kaya kasi hindi accepted to sa korte because it is not conclusive. Chart probing. The process of showing the polygram to the subject. Okay? The providing a brief explanation on the dissimilarities or the response with the objective of determining the true cause of recorded responses. Okay? And to clarify the confusion of misunderstanding that might have been caused by vague responses. Okay, papakita mo. Okay, papakita mo yung mismong polygram. And then, sasabihin mo din kung ano yung question doon. Tapos, tatanungin mo siya. Okay, tatanungin mo siya. And then, he will now be able to explain himself on the third page na yan. So, this is the Stolting conventional 4 pens. This is the LX400. Alright, thank you very much for listening.